Today, we're diving deep into a naval standoff that took two of the world's biggest powers right to the edge. It's a story of high-tech hardware, high-stakes gambles, and what happens when an unstoppable force meets, well, a very stoppable one.
That one sentence, man, that sends a shiver down your spine, doesn't it? It's the military equivalent of holding a loaded gun to someone's head. It's that single, terrifying moment where a chess match of intimidation could explode into a real shooting war. So the question is, how on earth did we get here?
Well, to really understand that moment, we've got to hit rewind. We're going back just 34 minutes to what started as a totally normal day in international waters and was about to become anything but. All right, so let's set the stage. Every story has a beginning, a spark that lights the fuse. And this one begins with a single aggressive move in one of the most important stretches of water on the entire planet. It's 9:23 in the morning. The crew of the USS Princeton, an Aegis-class cruiser, is watching their screens. And then something pops. A Chinese destroyer, way out at 200 kilometers, suddenly guns its engines, jumping from a cruising speed of 18 knots to a full-on sprint at 30. Now, out in the open ocean, you don't do that just for fun. That's a clear signal. That's a challenge. So you might be wondering, what was the U.S. Navy even doing out there? Well, this wasn't some covert op. It was a totally routine freedom of navigation operation. Basically, they were doing what they've done for decades, sailing through international waters to make sure they stay, well, international. They're the traffic cops of the high seas, making sure the lanes stay open for everybody. And why does that matter? Well, that number says it all. $3.4 trillion in trade passes through these waters every single year. So no, this isn't just about warships staring each other down. This is about protecting the absolute lifeblood of the global economy. And this wasn't some abstract concept on this particular day. I mean, look around. You've got 46 commercial ships just minding their own business within a 50-mile radius. You've got a ship from Singapore loaded with semiconductors we all need for our phones and computers, a South Korean tanker carrying $200 million worth of natural gas. All of them are counting on things staying peaceful. The stakes couldn't be more real. Now, a key player in this whole drama is a piece of tech called the SPY radar. And let me tell you, this thing is like a superpower. It gives the crew a picture so incredibly clear. They can spot something the size of a baseball from over 165 miles out. So to the guys on the Princeton, that approaching Chinese destroyer, it might as well have been the size of a planet. They saw it coming crystal clear. So the folks in the Combat Information Center start doing the math, and it is not pretty. At the speed that Chinese ship is traveling, it'll be close enough to fire its weapons in exactly 17 minutes. And once those missiles are in the air, they can cross that final distance in less than 4. A very real, very deadly clock has just started ticking. But here's the thing. This wasn't just about one aggressive ship captain. Oh no, the situation was about to get way more complicated. This was the opening move in a much bigger, coordinated gamble. A test of American resolve on the sea, in the air, and deep under the waves. You can just feel the ice in this captain's veins. When his team recommends going to general quarters, basically battle stations, that's his response. It's not arrogance. It's the kind of supreme confidence you have when you know your tech is better, your training is better, and you're sitting on top of 122 missile launchers ready to go. And then, bam, the whole game changes. The E-2D Hawkeye, which is basically America's eye in the sky, picks up multiple new contacts. They're launching from the Chinese aircraft carrier, the Shandong. And the signatures are unmistakable. J-15 fighter jets, climbing fast and heading right for them. The threat just went three-dimensional.
But right off the bat, the Chinese pilots are dealing with a huge problem. See, American carriers use these incredibly powerful steam catapults to fling their jets into the air. That means they can launch with a full tank of gas and a full load of weapons. The Chinese carrier, it just has a ramp, like a ski jump. So their jets have to launch with less fuel and fewer missiles. They're starting the fight at a massive disadvantage before they're even in the air.
So you've got a surface threat. You've got an air threat. What's missing? Right, the subsurface. And just as the air battle is taking shape, the sonar techs add the final piece of the puzzle. They've got a possible submerged contact, an acoustic signature that smells a lot like a Chinese submarine.
But get this, the stealthy submarine, this terrifying silent hunter, it wasn't so stealthy.
The thing was making so much noise, the American sonar operators were joking that it sounded like a freight train. Instead of sneaking up on them, it was basically shouting its location across the entire ocean. It was a pretty clumsy move.
And that noisy sub, really, it's the perfect way to get into the absolute heart of this story. The incredible, staggering technological gap between these two navies. We're not talking about a small difference here. We're talking about a multi-generational chasm in pretty much everything that matters.
So, over on the American carrier, the USS Nimitz, the response is, well, it's a sight to behold. The flight deck explodes into what they call controlled chaos. FA-18 Super Hornets are rocketing off those catapults every 45 seconds. It's like a perfectly choreographed, incredibly violent ballet of pure power projection. And the tech gap in the air is just as stark. Think of it like this. The American F-18s have a radar that's like having 100 eyeballs, all looking in every direction at once. It can track dozens of targets without even breaking a sweat. The Chinese J-15s? Their radar is more like a lighthouse, a single beam sweeping back and forth, which basically screams its own location to everyone in the area. But, the real secret sauce isn't just the individual pieces of gear. It's the network. It's a system called Link 16. It means every single U.S. ship and plane is sharing everything it sees with everyone else instantly. One pilot sees a threat, every pilot sees that threat. The Chinese pilots, on the other hand, are pretty much on their own, fighting as individuals. It's a team sport versus a bunch of solo acts.
And just when the Chinese pilots thought things couldn't get any worse, the Americans play their ace in the hole. A plane that doesn't fire a single missile, but might just be the most dangerous thing in the sky, the EA-18 Growler. This is the master of electronic warfare, and it's about to make their lives a living nightmare. The Growlers switch on their jamming pods, and for the Chinese pilots, reality just breaks. Suddenly, the 4 F-18s on their radar screen become 12, then 20. Real American jets just vanish from the screen, then reappear somewhere else entirely. They are completely, totally blind, swinging at shadows while the real threat is lining up a shot. They're literally fighting ghosts. So you've got all these pieces moving on the chessboard. The ships, the jets, the sub, the electronic warfare. It's all coming to a head. This is it. The climax. The moment where one wrong move, one miscalculation, could light the spark that starts World War III. At 0947, the Chinese destroyer does something you just don't do unless you're ready for a fight. It locks its fire control radar onto the USS Nimitz. That's not just looking anymore. That's painting a target. It's the final, unambiguous step you take right before you press the big red button. For 30 seconds, 30 long, agonizing seconds, that lock holds. The whole world holds its breath. But the American response is the definition of professionalism. They don't fire back, they don't escalate, they just watch. And they record everything, gathering priceless intelligence while their own weapons stay on standby. It's pure, disciplined calm in the face of aggression. Meanwhile, up in the sky, one of the J-15 pilots gets a little brave and decides to make an aggressive dive on an F-18. Bad move. The American pilot, a Top Gun graduate, doesn't even flinch. He just smoothly rolls his plane upside down, pulls on the stick, and in one beautiful fluid motion, he's parked right on the Chinese jet's tail. For 3 seconds, he has a perfect kill shot. He doesn't take it. Message sent. At almost the same moment, our noisy submarine friend makes its last and biggest mistake. See, it's a diesel-electric boat, so it has to come up near the surface to stick up a snorkel and recharge its batteries. It's something it has to do, but it's also the moment it's most vulnerable. And here comes the punchline. The sonar operators on the USS Princeton just calmly note the contact. Why so calm? Because their super advanced sonar had been tracking that quote-unquote stealthy sub for the last hour. They knew exactly where it was, down to a few meters. The whole time, the hunter had actually been the one being hunted. So at this point, China has played its entire hand, and every single card has been beaten. Now it's America's turn to end this game, not with an attack, but with a final, undeniable lesson in what real naval dominance looks like. At 2:30 in the afternoon, the USS Nimitz decides to put on a show. They launch everything. 48 aircraft roar off the deck. Super Hornets, Growlers, Hawkeyes. The sky literally fills with American air power. It is an overwhelming, unmistakable display of force. The Chinese ships were outmatched. Their planes were neutralized. Their noisy submarine was a joke. But even that massive show of force in the sky, well, it wasn't the final move. The biggest threat of all wasn't even visible.
Because the real checkmate in this chess game had been shadowing the Chinese fleet for the past 8 days, silently, patiently, completely undetected, a Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine.
And then it just surfaces. Not miles away. 6 nautical miles. Close enough for the lookouts on the Chinese carrier to see it with their own binoculars. It stays on the surface for 90 seconds, just long enough for the message to sink in, before quietly slipping back beneath the waves. The psychological blow is devastating. The message couldn't be clearer. We were here the whole time. You never saw us, and we can get to your most valuable ship anytime we want.
And up in the air? The game was already over. The American jets, with plenty of fuel to spare, had basically just run the Chinese J-15s out of gas. Remember that ski jump problem? It came back to bite them. One by one, the Chinese pilots hit bingo fuel and had to turn for home, their tanks nearly empty. By 4:23 p.m., it was officially over. The Chinese fleet turned around and headed home. Now, their official story was that they were just completing scheduled exercises. But everyone out there on both sides knew exactly what had just happened. They came looking for a confrontation, and they left completely and utterly outplayed.
So, when you peel back all the layers of this encounter, it's about so much more than one afternoon in the South China Sea. It's a powerful demonstration of a massive gap in technology, in training, and in doctrine that has been built over decades. And it leaves you with a really big question, doesn't it? What is the true cost of picking a fight with a Navy that has been mastering this game for over 100 years?